My name is Reggie White, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm an ex-problem smoker. And I want to thank Chanel for inviting me out to share here today. And I want to thank my sponsor, Rico Cruz, because for his generosity, which is shouldn't be surprising. Um, it was supposed to be Rico and I on here speaking, and Rico told me yesterday. He said, "Reggie, it's your birthday, and what I want you to this is your day, and I want you to go out and I want you to share alone. Don't, leave me out." He said, "I just want to be here to support you and I want to be here to watch this." And thank you so much, Rico, for once again being so generous and so kind. You know, um, welcome to the newcomers. Welcome to anybody new to this fellowship, to the Fellowship of Cocaine Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. And welcome to anybody who's trying to just pick up a few days here. Um, I think that what I'm supposed to do here today is hold it together long enough to put together a coherent share. And that may be a little bit too much for me today. You know, I've been pretty much overwhelmed with all of you guys, today. I've gotten phone calls, I've gotten texts, I've gotten someone, Debbie Davis sent me the grapevine from the month and year that um, I got sober, and it's just the overwhelming generosity of the people of Cocaine Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous never ever fails to amaze. And to our new friends, what we do, there's probably some people here who are like me, um, who struggle with this thing. You know, um, I've had two different kinds of sobriety in this fellowship, and it's distinctly different. And I was talking to Mike Mack this morning, and we were both like Mike Mack is a serial relapser like me. I'm a guy who just couldn't. I was out for 16 years and I just couldn't get it together enough to stay here. I would get I would always get 90 days and 90 days and 90 days. And that's because I go in the rehabs, 90-day rehabs. And I would do every bit of those 90 days. And I would come out of those rehabs as most likely to stay sober. And I would come out of those rehabs and then I'd start looking for it. I would go to a couple of meetings and I would be, dang. And and all I could think about was me and how ashamed I was. And I would be hiding out in alcohol, in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous. And I'm a guy who just, I compare the best thing I have that I've always had going for me here is when I first came to this fellowship, I had three brothers who were with me in this thing: Rod, Ralph, Ronald. Two of them are here on this meeting today, or Ronald may have bailed out on me already. I know he's going to at some point. Yes, and that's what we do here. We're able to work. We're able to, hold together our families, make a living and stuff, when we've been blessed that way. And when I first came here, I came in February of 1987. And Ronald had come here in July of 86, and Ralph had come here October of 86, and Rod had come here in December of 87. And we were all walking this path together. And everything came real easy at first, and it was fun because it was brand new. I'd never been sober before. I'd never thought about being sober. I'd never wanted to be sober before. Man, getting loaded was fun to me. I was a shy guy coming up. And so, in order, I started getting loaded just to be able to talk to you women on here. You guys are some of the worst of the worst. You know how tough you are on a guy like me, who's a good guy and a nice guy. Shit, you guys have a field day messing with somebody like me. And I started drinking and using, and man, life was good and life was fun. And I was able to be myself, at least what I thought myself was. Actually, it was a representative of what I thought you guys really liked. And I carried that representative. I was able to recreate me and be a different me by drinking and using. And I did that for a whole lot of years. And it was fun for a whole lot of years until it turned on me. And then I was alone. And I remember Ralph, and by the time Ralph and Ronnie had left and went to rehabs, we had already, because of crack cocaine, we had been split apart. We had already always used to be together. Me and all five of my brothers used to be together drinking and using, and it was a whole lot of fun. But then crack cocaine just tore us apart. And by the time I got to you guys, I've been running around. And life wasn't fun anymore. And I'm still trying and trying and trying to reach back to the times when it was fun, and it just wasn't. And I came to you guys, and I was so happy when I started reading the book and going through the steps and finding out that it wasn't me, that it wasn't just me with weak willpower and stuff like that, and that there was a real problem here behind this. And I was happy to find that out. And life got really good really fast, and I made a lot of money, and I got that girl, and and man, and life showed up. And eventually, when my little girl got sick, and and they made a money decision to kill my daughter, and I kind of went off the rails because I had already moved away from you guys. See, because I never ever got that God thing. I faked it, and I talked about that God thing a lot, right? God is everything. God is everything or he's nothing. I knew the right answer. God is everything, but I didn't even know what everything was. And I lasted a lot of years. You know, I had a long, good run, and then when the tragedy came of my baby dying, I had nothing under me. I had nothing left. And if there are new friends on here that haven't heard me before, I went out. I went out and got loaded, and I couldn't make it back for 16 years. And during that 16-year period, a whole lot happened that tore apart. Um, what I want to do is because I'm so grateful, man, to have these 9 years. When I was talking to Mike Mack this morning, we were marveling at the fact of since I've been back to you guys, it's been so easy. Everything has been so easy. There's been not one tough day, not one day where I've thought about drinking or using, not one tough day, and everything has been so easy. It's like God reached down and touched me and just said, "You've had enough." And you guys, what I want to talk about mainly is you guys, because I don't believe that this has anything to do with me. Um, all those years for new friends. There's some people in here right now who are really struggling to get a toehold on this program, and I have a responsibility to talk to you guys. And all those years that I was struggling to get a toehold, when I would go in those rehabs, like Ronald would talk about, I repair, not recover, right? I would repair faster than I could recover because I tried to keep you guys at arm's length, and I was trying to sneak back, and I always thought it was like some prestige or something. I'm watching you guys, and I'm watching all the years you have and all this, and I just looked at it the wrong way. I don't even know how I was looking at this thing, but I knew that it felt like I was being judged every single second. of every single day that I would come in Alcoholics Anonymous. Clancy used to talk about how I remember that first time I came through, I used to go sit with Clancy sometimes downtown. I would take panels down on Skid Row, and he would take time out and like just shoot the breeze with me, shoot the shit a little bit. Clancy was crazy. And he would talk about how AA was the only friendly direction, right? And when I first came here, AA was the only friendly direction. But when I become a serial relapser, sometimes Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous is not a friendly direction. Sometimes we get careless and we say things, do things that are not kind and loving and inviting and welcoming to the new friend. Sometimes we act like we have to be hard on people, and maybe sometimes we do have to be hard on people. I don't know, but I needed to be built up and not tore down. Thank God for Rico Cruz. You know, I beat myself down so badly that there was absolutely nothing you guys could do to tear me down. In those 16 years that I was out there, I lo- I remember I remember that time when they had that 75th birthday for mom and they had a party planned for her, and I put together a few months of sobriety, and I went down there to go to that big birthday party for mom, and mom was so happy and she's showing me off and she's excited because all her boys are back. And you know, the mother is only as happy as their most unhappy child. And my mom was thrilled. It's her 75th birthday. People are coming from all across the country. And she said, Reggie, take my car and go pick your aunt up at the airport, her favorite sister-in-law, you know, and that was my favorite aunt. And I was so proud and so happy that my mom believed in me. And I got in that car to go up there early. That was when you could sit at the airport and wait at the arrival, right? And I drove up there, drove to go to the airport and go pick up my aunt at the airport, and I was going to make that left turn to go to the airport. And all of a sudden, the thought hit me. I said, I could go by Phyllis's house, and I could just smoke a 20 with her, maybe get topped off, and I could, and still make it to the airport in plenty of time. And it was 3 weeks before they found that car. And it was probably about a year before I came back around my family again. And now I'm ashamed and I'm humiliated. And now everybody in my family knows exactly who I am, and the extended family all around. And that shame and that guilt just poured on me, and it piled up on me over the years. By the time I was God gave me glaucoma, and I had 0% vision in my right eye and 30% vision in my left. And I became legally blind, and I can't drive in the state of California, and I can't work for anybody. And I started working. I mean, I started getting money from the county, $200 a month plus $200 worth of food stamps, and I'm selling plasma twice a week to make ends meet. Ends ain't meet. And so now my vision is gone and I'm losing it. And I'm too busy drinking and using to go take care of it. So I'm losing my eyesight more and more every day. And I got an enlarged prostate. And I can't control my bodily function. Now I'm physically dying. I'm physically dying, and I have cocaine-induced psychosis where I'm seeing people next to me, and I'm talking to them, and they're sitting here and they're talking to me, and I'm hearing voices in closets, and I'm hearing voices everywhere, and I'm sitting outside of myself, and I'm watching myself physically and mentally circle the drain, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't believe I can ever make it back from this. And my mom by now has let me back in her house, even after that incident with her car. And, and I'm, and I'm killing my mom, and I'm tearing my family. And now my brothers are so tired of seeing me. And every time, I don't think anybody even wanted to invite me to a meeting again. Because if I asked you if you did that, all I was going to do after the meeting is I then try to borrow some money from you so that I could go drink and use. And everybody knew that. And there was no pretense of it. And I hate God. And I've tried every way I can to get back to you guys. And I've gone to all these different rehabs time and time and time and time and time again. And all I kept doing is waiting for the next time that I was going to relapse. And when I go into your meetings with you, like I said, your meetings, even when I do go into those meetings, I sit in the corner somewhere and I try to make sure that nobody asks me those deadly, fatal questions that I hated so much that would just tear my soul apart. When somebody would come over to me and they would ask me that stupid ass question, how much time you got? Or you knew. And it felt like I was just being judged all the time. But then there are things that you guys did to help pull me out of this. I don't know if I ever would have had the courage to do some of the things that I did, but I'm sitting in my mom's house at one point in there, and that was when Ronald came in there after Ronald had lost his license, his law license. He came in that house and walked in, and he told my mom what had happened, and my mom starts crying. And Ronald just stands there. He tells her exactly what's going on, and she says, "What are you going to do?" He said, "Well, maybe I'll go mow some lawns or something." And I'm sitting there looking at it, and it was probably the worst day of his life. And I'm looking at it like, I don't know if I could ever be that brave. It was like the bravest thing that I had ever seen. I don't know if I could walk up to anybody and tell them the truth. I don't know if I could ever walk up and just be totally open, totally transparent, and say that. And or when my mom was dying, and we take my mom down the ER down in Centinela. And me and Ronnie and Lisa, Ralph's ex-wife, and we are sitting, and me and Ronnie are in the emergency room because Lisa, it was her turn to go to the back with mom. And I'm sitting there and I'm just locked into my book because I'm thinking about mom. And Ronnie's sitting next to me. And he starts talking to the people at the front, oh, you got a spill over here, somebody might get hurt, and he's helping them and he's directing people around it, and then he stops the security guard and tells the guy, oh, you doing such a great job, and the guy lights up and he's like, oh, nobody has ever told me that before. And then Ronnie says, I'm going to get food. He goes to get some food, and comes back and then brings me some food. And then he says, oh, and then there's Cokes over in the machine. And I was about to get up and he's, no, 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 I'll get it for you. And I'm looking at this guy and it's like the worst day of our life watching our mom dying. And here he is looking out for everybody else. And I'm looking at this guy. It's like he's my hero. I watch the stuff that you do in these roles. On the day of June 24th, 2017, that was the worst day of my life. That was the day that girl stole my mom's car out of her driveway. And my mom's face is locked into my eye, like the way that she looked that day is locked into my memory. My baby brother Rod now he'll have 39 years on Christmas Day. A lot of you know him, but he's a giant in Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous as well. And he pushed open the door to that room and told me I have to leave my mother's house right now. And my mom was standing behind him and she was looking terrified. of me. And man, I'm just a smoker. I'm not a guy that's gonna hurt anybody. See, that's what I say to myself. And physically, I'm not gonna do anything to my mom. My mom knows that, but I'm stealing from my mom. I'm people bringing people around that are dangerous. I'm tearing my mom's heart apart. My mom is having to sit there and watch her son die right in front of her, watching me die slowly. At one point, she had went ahead and she had bought a burial policy and a cremation policy because she said she didn't want to have to do a GoFund for me. He told me that later on. But on that day, and I walked out of my mom's house and I didn't have anywhere to go. And I called Rico Cruz. And Rico said he had been waiting for that. And he said, go get your assessment and I'll get you in here at Act again. No questions asked. Rico just that's how Rico is. And I left out of there that day because I didn't have anywhere to go. And my mom had told me to never set foot on her property again. She said that she didn't have another, that I wasn't her son anymore. That she had one less son. She said, do not set foot on my property again. And that was like the worst day of my life. June 24th, 2007. I had no way of knowing that what I thought new friends. A lot of times, what we think when that judge is saying, "Oh, I'm going to sentence you to this," or that person says, "Get out of my house." Years later, before my mom died, I told her the absolute best thing you ever did for me, Mom, was to kick me out of your house. The absolute best thing you ever did is when you put me out of your house. And but that day, it didn't feel. Sometimes Sometimes the light at the end of the tunnel looks like the train is coming at me and about to run me over. I didn't know that was the light of God shining down on me, right? And and that night, because I'm not a guy who can live on the streets, I don't have it in me like that. So that night, I came back, even though she said never set foot on her property again, and I knew I was going to do the assessment the next day, and then the day after that, I was going to go on the action. I was going to go, and they were going to pick me up in the van. Um, that night, I snuck back down the driveway, and I snuck around to the back of the house behind that garage where I always snuck and drank and smoked crack and used and stuff like that, and brought all that havoc and stuff to her house. But I just wanted a safe place to lay down. And I lay down back there on the ground behind that garage that day. And I'm laying on the ground and I got some paper under me, some paper or something. And next thing I know, there's Ralph and my mom coming around the corner of the garage. I'm like, oh. And mom had told me she was calling the police on me if I ever set foot on her property. See Ralph to talk to me. And they told me that they were going to let me come. They said that he had talked to mom and mom agreed to let me come stay in that house for 2 days until I went into that rehab. And that was the first piece of hope. That was the first piece of hope. Got a little bit of hope right then and there. When they let me come in that house, I thought it was a situation where they were going to tell me to get away from there, but instead they let me come in that house and stay there until I went to that rehab. And I went into that rehab. And I'm walking with my head down like I always do because I just was so. all the time. And Rico walked up on me and he said, Reggie, pick your head up. You're a child of God. You don't have a right to walk with your head down anymore. And before I could stop myself, I said, would you please take me through the steps? And God reached down right then, right there, and touched me and changed something in me. Just surely as Bill Wilson had that white light experience, something changed in me, and I no longer cared what people thought about me. And I just started going around talking to those 200 guys in that rehab. And man, thank you, Rico. And Rico started building me up. Right then and there, Rico started building me up. He said, you're not your brothers, and you never have to, not another. He said, anytime anybody comes, give them the best Reggie White you got. They're not looking for Ralph or Ronald or even Rod or even me or Bill Wilson or anybody else. He said they see something in you that I took that to heart. And every single day since then, whenever anybody, they get the best Reggie White that I got. And God is just pouring grace on me, and I still don't have that connection with God. And then I got back to Never Too Early Big Book Workshop because I didn't care what people thought about it anymore. I walked back in there, and then the next miracle happened. Yeah, we did that third step prayer together. That was on really the second week that we were back in there. But that first week is when I walked in there and something huge happened. Ronald asked this guy, Angel, just take me to a meeting that night because I can't drive. And that guy, Angel, took me to a meeting every single night for the next 2 years until the pandemic came. He took me every single, he kept asking me, and it turned out later on, Angel told me, he said he had been to a meeting in 3 years. He was still sober. He had about 24 years of sobriety, I think, but he had had something happen in his life where he had given up on AA and CA, and he had stopped going to meetings. And he said somehow something made him go to Never Too Early that morning. And he went to Never Too Early that morning, and he got asked to take me to a meeting. And he said he kept thinking I was going to say no. And he kept asking me to go the next night. I kept saying yes and kept saying yes and kept saying yes. And he said that because of my enthusiasm and my excitement, he caught Alcoholics Anonymous again. He caught Cocaine Anonymous again. He said that I saved him as much as he saved. And that's God stepping in once again. And then we started going through those steps. We did that third step prayer, and then we did that fourth step, and that's where I put God on that fourth step. And I started to see things a little bit differently. That's where things changed. I still wasn't all letting God all the way in, but I could see the difference in that. And then we got to that fifth step, and that was critical with me and Rico once again, because I had a lot of people that out. When you're out for 16 years and people see you as nothing but, quite frankly, a crackhead. I stopped being even their brother at some point almost, I believe. I can't really say that for them, but it felt that way. And there was a lot of people that I owed amends to that had done things to harm me. They probably may not have even known they harmed me. But I'm talking to Rico about all this. That's when Rico told me what we do amends cards. So we write up the list of amends and then we do our amends card. Made me do a list of forgiveness in that fifth, so that we could take that to that eighth step. So we doing forgiveness as well as amends. But before that, we wrote up all those defects. I looked at those defects of character. I could see them. I saw the pattern. What I saw was a pattern of my behavior, and I was like, "Damn, Rico, I'm fucked up." And Rico, and before I skipped step 6 and 7 were nothing but a speed bump to me. But I'm going to give I don't know if there's some new friends in here. Wait, how much time do I have? I got a little bit of time. If there's some new friends in here, I'm going to try to give you step six where you may be able to understand it just a little bit better than me because I could never really get a handle on step six and seven. I know it's like, okay, turn your will, give, give all my defects of character to God. Okay, okay, what does that really mean? But then people talk about, oh, well, there's contrary. You practice contrary actions and you work on. I'm working on my defects. I help God. I give God as if God needs my to-do list. I'm helping God. Or I'm working on my defects of character. I'm helping God. No, no, no. Look at it like this. Some of you may have seen those old cartoons with Bugs Bunny in them, right? Bugs Bunny cartoons, they would have like a cannibal, right? There would be a huge pot, and Bugs would be sitting in the pot, and the cannibal was cooking Bugs, right? And the cannibal was throwing carrots and onions and stuff. The Bugs by now has picked up one of the carrots and eaten it and everything. But you got this huge pot that Bugs is sitting in. And see, that's like me in that pot, and that's God on the outside. And so you got that pot, and I'm throwing in my defects of character. And what I normally want to do is I want to say, wait a minute, God, let me take these out of this pot. God, you need to work on these. These are my defects of character. Then no, God don't need my hands inside the pot. Okay, but wait a minute. Here's how God really doesn't need my help. He don't say just put in these defects of character. God, when I do that 7-step prayer, I ask God to take all of me, good and bad, everything, all of Reggie White, take all of me, good and bad, take all of my defects of character, take all of me. So once I'm in that pot, once I give God and I trust God with me, all of me in that big old pot that I'm cooking there, you don't need to cook. You don't need four hands in there. The only hands that need to be in that pot are God's hands. What I do is I step back. I get out of the way. That's how I work 6 times. I didn't just speed bump it. I got the hell out of the way. God take all of me, good and bad. I knew what my defects of character were. I looked at my defects of character. Rico and I discussed my defects of character, but as far as I went on them, I'm not going to say, "Oh, these are the ones I got to work on." God know what I need because He wants to take away my defects of character, other than those that would be of use to you. Why take them away? In order for me to be useful to you and to my fellows, in order to me to be useful to you guys and to be useful to God. Take away my defects of character. And so God take all of that. And then I get to that 8th and 9th step. And see, that's where I actually had to trust God again. And I had no personal relationship with God. And as a guy who's one of those relapsing guys, I gotta be all in, because I couldn't get a toehold on this thing, guys. And that's where things started to turn. And then I got to that 8th step, and I did that forgiveness. And when I did that forgiveness, it enabled me to do real amends to everybody. Thank you, Rico. Rico really has no idea just how instrumental he was. Just how, God. Anyway, and when I started doing those amends, I started to see God because those amends were hard. Those amends were scary, especially when I had to do them to my mom and to my ex-wife and to my brothers and to my son, especially my stepson. And the money amends are not a big deal to me. It's the personal amends because the way that we did it, and I love the way Rico had me do it when we wrote them out, because otherwise I would skip stuff and I would read off all these different things that I did. And when I'm talking about all this stuff that I did over a 16-year period plus, man, that's a lot to talk about. And it made me know that I want to be a better person. that I never want to have to go through this. And then the pandemic came, and Angel's not taking me to meetings anymore. And then I started Valerie, this woman Valerie, I don't know if Valerie's on here. She asked me to go to her meeting, come in her meeting. It's a 7 a.m. LA time meeting called Rising in Recovery. And I started going to that meeting. And what's significant about me starting to go to that meeting on Zoom every morning? Well, when I started going to that meeting, it gave me a foundation where I could start to actually work steps 10 and 11 all the time. See, I wasn't really doing, I would do prayer. I was always good at prayer once I got back, but I was never good at meditation. And this gave me it gave me a discipline where I started doing prayer and meditation, and I'm doing prayer and meditation. And see, my first time around, I skipped 10 and 11, just like I skipped 6 and 7. So I didn't have anything to keep me in this program. Now I'm doing 10 and 11, I'm doing that meditation, prayer and meditation every day. Then I do my meeting, the Rising and Recovery, and that's 5 days out a week. And I'm doing Never Too Early on Sunday. And there's no, and then Chris Finley stepped in because at the pandemic, we had lost Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, and that was everything. And then Chris, I was sitting over there talking to Ralph. We were over at the house talking, and me and Ralph talking. And Chris called, and she had said, I got this thing called Zoom. I got this work platform called Zoom, and we could do the meeting on that. And her and Ralph talked that out. And then I said, well, how are people going to know about it? And I said, I'll take that on as my commitment to let people know about Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. I'll contact everybody and let them know and give them the Zoom stuff. And then from that, I said, well, why don't I start letting people know about all the meetings? And from that day to this, I've been sending out Zoom meetings every single day. And it's probably like 900 something people a day that I've been sending them out to. Because a guy like me has to have a commitment every single day. Guys, it's been easy. This has been so easy. I think God reached down, like Mike and I talked about this morning. God reached down and he said, you had enough. He just told me I had enough. And thank God for that, because then I had to repair things with my mom. And my mom didn't believe I was all the way back with you guys. At my second year, I had her come in the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop and give me my 2-year cake. And my mom gave me that hug life. And I thought that she really believed I was back. And she was so happy she had got to see how much you guys loved her other sons, Ralph and Ronald and Rod, and so she saw the relationship there and how much you guys loved them. And, and then my ex-wife Carolyn took her home, and as she was taking her home, Mom was asking her, do you think Reggie is really still back? And then right after that, that was in June of 2019. Then in September of 2019, we went on a cruise when it was all her sons and Mom and 70 other AA people, and my mom went around that whole boat talking to all 70 of you guys, asking, do you think Reggie's really back? And my mom didn't believe I was back. And I was just patient. New friends, we have to be patient because we're a tornado in their lives, and we tear their lives apart. And at the 4-year mark, my mom wrote in my birthday card, you're the center of my universe. And I wonder what had happened. What had happened is that woman that I had left at the airport, my Aunt Dean, I made amends to her. And she came to LA to visit Mom. And she told Mom, no, Reggie is back. She told my mom about the amends that I made to her. She told Mom that I was back. And she told Mom about how hard it was to lose a child. And and Mom believed her. And that's why. That's the power of amends. That's the power of amends. Had I not made the amends to my aunt, my mom may never have believed I was all the way back. But she believed I was all the way back then. And from that point, I started going to see her every other week. And I did it to talk to her as a living amends then, to talk to her as Marie White Fuqua, the little girl who grew up in Mississippi in the 1930s, and talk to her as a person rather than just mom, and treat her as a real person. And I got all the stories from her, and we would laugh and joke, and we would talk about her raising all these 6 boys, and we became best friends. So that by the time, so I was able to not only be there while she was living, but I was able to be there that night that my mom left. Due to you guys, I would have missed all this if not for you. And I was there that night when my mom, when she left us and she was calling her sons in one by one. She had us go in there like she wanted just to look at her while she was fighting for her life with the oxygen mask on her. And she just like wanted to take our face to heaven. Strongest woman I've ever known, best person I've ever known. And I've been able to work with a lot of you guys. And you guys have been able, a lot of you guys have trusted me with your lives. And I think that what I'm really trying to say is that there's always, the message I'm bringing here today is a message of hope, a message of the generosity of the people here in Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous. There are people here that have meant so much in my life. My brothers are some of my heroes. There are other people in here who have meant so much to me and are some of my heroes. And I've got phone calls from people. And again, I'm just totally overwhelmed. I'm totally overwhelmed. I don't have anything else to share with you guys today. Um, Other than if you have a brother, a sister, a daughter, a friend who is struggling to get this thing and you see them out here, the way that you guys helped me the most is that you just walked this program and you treated me. The ones of you who, when you saw me, you would treat me like a human being. And sometimes you're the only big book that I had an opportunity to read. And I think that that's our job with those people that are still out here. And we just don't put them out of the reach of God. We don't give up on anybody, you know. Anyway, Chanel, thank you so much for asking me out. Rico, thank you so much for being so generous with me. My name's Reggie White. I'm an addict. Thank you for allowing me.